If you have the transmission disconnected on an Audi A4 1.8T Quattro, then now's a good time to replace the oil pan gasket and the rear main seal. This video will show the procedure starting with removing the rear main seal. At the back of the engine, loosen these bolts with a 16mm 12-point socket. We're going to remove the drive plate. Notice that it has this spacer and then the actual drive plate, and then you have another spacer right here. This spacer has a dowel and another dowel over here. 2 dowels. Remove 6 bolts around the rear main seal housing, and then 2 bolts here at the bottom. 10mm socket for all the bolts. All the bolts around the housing are the same length. You'll notice that the seal housing is sitting on 2 dowels, so you're going to want to pry from up here first. Use an old screwdriver, pry from there, then from the side right here. Here's a good spot. And then from here, and remove the spacer. The spacer is keyed, so it can only fit one way for the holes. And there's our old piece. Moving on to removing the oil pan. First, drain the oil. Socket size for the drain plug is 19mm. Next, remove 2 bolts for the turbocharger oil return line. These are H5, Allen head 5. Then remove 3 bolts for the torque support bar. Torque support bar functions as a motor mount, and at the front of it, there should be a big old bushing, and this one lost it a long time ago. So these 3 bolts are H6. H6. At the driver's side of the oil pan, you're going to disconnect the oil pressure sensor. You're going to pry up on this tab very gently. You hear that click? Now you can remove it. We remove these 2 bolts when we remove the rear main seal, so we don't have to worry about those. Remove these 2 bolts, 2 large bolts with the 16mm socket, and then check out this graphic. That's how many oil pan bolts there are. So go ahead and remove all of them around the oil pan with the 10mm socket and an extension. We're going to pull the pan forward from the front, but the serpentine belt's in the way. So we're going to remove it. At the idler, use an 18mm wrench to grip onto this tab. Then move it to the right, and now the belt is loose and you can remove it. Now back at the bottom, we're gonna loosen up the air compressor. We're gonna remove these 3 bolts with the 16mm socket. Remove it and support the air compressor with a bungee cord. That's gonna give you enough clearance to drop the oil pan from the front, because this line is in the way and also the belt was in the way. So now with those removed, we only have 1 bolt holding the oil pan. And we're gonna go ahead and remove it. We did not need to pry this oil pan. It was already loose. So with that last bolt removed, we're gonna remove this from the front. It should have plenty of clearance now. Plenty of clearance. Look at that, it just slid off. We're gonna leave the plastic baffle in place. We're gonna remove 2 bolts holding the oil pickup tube. Socket size 10mm. Our oil pan wasn't that bad. It did have some small pebbles at the very bottom of it, but overall it wasn't that dirty. The pickup tube, it also has those small pebbles in the strainer portion. If you're going to reuse your pickup tube, go ahead and order a new O-ring. If you're going to replace your pickup tube, the part is made by Vico. It does not come with an O-ring, so you're gonna have to buy the O-ring. So if you're buying new or replacing, either way, you're gonna have to purchase that O-ring. We're gonna remove this bolt. I guess it was securing a bracket which broke. Socket size, Allen H5. We're also gonna remove the oil pressure sensor. 3 bolts, same socket, Allen H5. And we're gonna throw this in the parts washer. Make sure the contact area for the pickup tube is clean with your new O-ring. Torque the pickup tube 2 bolts to 132 inch-pounds. That's 15 Newton meters. Get your rear main seal on there. Use the installer to prevent from damaging the lip. That easy. We're gonna put in the bolts finger tight, 6 bolts. The rear main seal housing is aligned with these 2 dowels. And now we're gonna torque the bolts to 10 Newton meters, which is about 88.5 inch-pounds in a cross pattern. After your oil pan is nice and clean, especially the mating surfaces, snug up this bolt with the bracket. Oil level sensor is also snugged up. Oil drain plug, torque it to 30 Newton meters. 30 Newton meters, which is about 22 foot-pounds. Your torque support bar, get the new bushing on there. Get your new bushing on there. And you should call her. They do make a specific gasket for this oil pan. Service information calls for a bead around the service area, but I'm not a fan of using RTV. So we're gonna go ahead and use this oil pan gasket without using any RTV. Use a few bolts to hold the oil pan in position. We're gonna torque the AC compressor to 25 Newton meters, which is about 18.4 foot-pounds. Get your belt back on there. If you pulled the oil pan towards the rear, you probably didn't need to remove this. And get the connector for the oil level sensor back on there. We're gonna tighten down the oil pan bolts in 3 steps. Step number 1, tighten them all to 5 Newton meters, which is about 44 inch-pounds. That includes these 2 at the rear main seal. These 2 are the same length as all the other oil pan bolts. So these are part of that sequence. 5 Newton meters, 44 inch-pounds. Then these larger bolts, step 2, torque these to 40 Newton meters, which is about 29.5 foot-pounds. And finally, step 3, tighten them all the oil pan bolts to 15 Newton meters, which is about 11 foot-pounds. At the rear main seal, you're gonna add your spacer plate. It can only go in one way. You're gonna add another spacer. It has 2 hash marks for these 2 dowels that are on the engine. Make sure the hole for the starter is on the passenger side. Then we're gonna add the flex plate, which Audi calls the drive plate. It has a built-in spacer to it. That's gonna be towards the engine side. Towards the engine side. Last, we're gonna add this other spacer plate that has this little part sticking up. You want that part to be facing away from the engine. Away from the engine. And finally, we're gonna add our bolts. You're gonna torque these in a cross pattern to 60 Newton meters plus 90 degrees, or 44 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. It is highly recommended that you replace these bolts because they're torqued to yield. To stop the crankshaft from moving, I put a pry bar at the drive wheel right there at the flex plate. I'm still supporting the engine with the jack right there at the bottom of the oil pan. I didn't quite get these to 90 degrees plus the torque value because the engine kept just wobbling like crazy. So I got into about 30-ish, 32 degrees, which should be fine in my opinion. At the oil pan passenger side, we're going to use a jack and a block of wood to support the oil pan. Torque the 3 bolts at the torque support to 28 Newton meters, which is about 20.7 foot-pounds. Oil drain plug, 30 Newton meters, 22 foot-pounds. 2 bolts for the turbocharger oil return line, 10 Newton meters, which is about 88.5 inch-pounds. Don't forget to add a new gasket to that return line. New gasket. Last up, engine oil specifications. The A4 uses different viscosities of oil depending on your area. For my area, 5W40 is best. 4.3 quarts, which is about 4.1 liters for a drain and refill. The oil has to meet Audi specification VW50200, which this oil does. And that wraps it up for this video. Check out this video on tips for replacing the 5HP19 FLA transmission on this vehicle. See you next time. Have a good day.